now. Would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
To Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. We're going to kind of dive into some foreign relations since we have, again, some more amping up of, tensions with Syria and Russia. Now, sorry. Okay. Now, we have this, Syria is planning a chemical attack, and it really seems like either they actually do know this or they're trying to condition for it. And it's really, a lot of people go, he tends to keep his word on certain things, but then on others he doesn't. And the way he went after Obama. And he said something to the effect if Obama strikes Syria and innocent people are killed or hurt, that it would look really bad. But at the same time, we're going to attack them. Now, the attack that did happen, that where we struck the airfield, that you can look at that and be like, okay, no innocent people were going to, no bystanders were going to get hurt in that. And from what I did hear, they even told there was some type of back channel that they were told, we're striking it. But they're claiming that now they are preparing out of that same airfield more chemical attacks. Now, so pulling up all these articles here. And a lot of these media outlets, a lot of the mainstream liberal, outlets that supported, Obama, or at least did not talk about what Obama was doing in Syria, even after, the whole Benghazi thing. It was the conservatives, going, look, they were gun running. Now conservatives are in charge. Now we should, go after Syria. And now you have a lot of the liberal mainstream media, USA Today on June 26th, Donald Trump is reckless on Syria. It's his most dangerous foreign, I forget what the full title was. Warning of Syria, this out of the LA Times, warning of Syria's chemical weapons test is of Trump's credibility. Now, I want to get into this Ron Paul Liberty Report. Why some of this is loading. So let's go ahead and dive into that. And this one's Trump super fake Syria news, more U.S. attacks expected.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. And Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Good. I'm just wondering whether or not Trump has been vindicated. He's complained a lot about fake news, and I think he's been right. There's a lot of fake news out there, and the neat thing about it is a lot of people have awakened to this, and hopefully one day they'll realize that almost anything government people say in the media says, they'll realize they better be very skeptical of it, and they have to look for something else. But Zero Hedge has a great headline here dealing with what looks like a little bit of vindication for Trump. And it had to do with a sting operation by the individuals that Project Veritas. Yeah. They went in and got the producer of CNN to do some talking. He's on tape, and it's pretty amazing. The headline was CNN caught cold in undercover sting. Producer admits Russia fake news story pushed for ratings. And this is on there. And I think at one time the producer even said, Trump's actually absolutely right. We don't have anything on them. And they've also been just recently had to apologize about the charges of Scaramucci, claiming he was dealing deals with Russia. And now the CNN was even forced to not fire anybody, but resignation of 3 individuals. The producer is still going strong. But this tells you something about what's really going on with a lot of people. I'm sure every Trump supporter believes this. But there might be a little bit more to this story. But I think this is significant. This should discredit CNN, which they deserve.
Yeah, and it sort of caps off what so far has been a good week or so for Trump. You got the CNN sting, and the producer was on tape saying this is all BS. We know it is. It's all about ratings. Wait till the other stations will admit that. But you got the Loretta Lynch stuff. This is good for Trump. This is starting to capture the headlines. I see Judge Napolitano said she could theoretically face some time behind bars for this. You'd think this would be a great week for Trump so far, but then he goes back on a self-destructive tangent, I think.
Yeah, but there's other things in the news today, too, and that has to do with the other side of the coin. And as our title to our program indicates, maybe Trump participates in fake news. Wonder who started all this? Well, my suspicion is that I've been involved in politics since the 1970s. And I think a long time before I got involved, politicians are always involved in fake news. It's demagoguing, it's lying, it's fibbing, it's distorting the news, it's coalitions and conspiracies. That's what drives politics, and usually money and special interests, obviously. Then there's a game they play, and in some ways, there may be a little bit of game playing between Trump and CNN. I doubt if it's very friendly, but there's some game playing there, one-upsmanship. Let's get a story out and see if we can build ratings, and then Trump has to fire back and try to get him to tweet something that gets him gets him into trouble. Yeah. But now there's a story out. Of course, Trump is saying, watch out. This Assad guy's a bad guy. And we have information and evidence. They don't tell us where the evidence came from. Evidence that he just may well be getting ready to gas his own people, massive killing of his own people. And then the threats start to come out. And that's when I think it starts getting serious. There's threats and innuendos about what's going to happen. And this time it looks like it could escalate. But I do want to quote just to give the viewers a sense of where I'm coming from, because Sean Spicer, had a conference yesterday, and they say this with a straight face. I'm sure CNN is back to fake news already, but what about the administration and the president? So Sean Spicer had his conference yesterday, and it might have even been this morning. I don't know. And this is Spicer. The United States has identified potential for another chemical weapons attack on the Assad regime. Another attack that would likely result in the mass murder of civilians, including innocent children. Worry about the children like Albright. She worried about the children, too. Yeah. The activities are similar to preparations the regime made before the April 4th chemical weapons attack. Sure. We remember that one. Oh, you mean this is a comment by Zero Head. Oh, you mean the Syrian government is planning on bombing Islamic terrorists again? The attack. But this is something they come up with a very straight face, and they have no proof on it. Even the first attack, which was not an attack by Assad, that got Obama all stirred up, and the whole world community against them. So this is it right now, and the language is getting stronger. Others have chimed in on how serious this is and how we can't let this go by without some retaliation.
Yeah, we do have, actually, we can put up Nikki Haley, his rabidly neoconservative ambassador to the UN. This even tops Spicer. Any further attacks done to the people of Syria will be blamed on Assad, but also on Russia and Iran, who support him killing his own people. They talk about giving a green light to terrorists, to false flaggers, to outside sponsors, the Saudis, the other Gulf states. Israel's been bombing the Syrian government lately over the weekend and recently. Talk about giving a green light to anyone to attack the Syrian people. If Nikki Haley says, we don't care who did it, it's going to be blamed on Assad. Wink, wink, off with it. Let's go.
Assad and Russia and Iran. That's what they want to do. But this is interesting to think about in terms of what will the CNN people be saying. I heard a little bit of their position today, and when it comes to this war, they're not pointing out that Trump is using fake news. They're chiming in. Well, it sounds like this would be good. And this goes back to my thesis about how it works in Washington, that on the big issues, the Republicans and Democrats, are buddies. War issues, foreign policy, monetary issues, spending, and welfare. They come together. The rest is just all fluff. And there's a little bit of fluff going on here, between CNN and the president, because the CNN is actually, giving some token support to this. But all the stations do this. And I don't see that the issue of fake news is sort of like a game they're playing. And to me, it's an insult to the people's intelligence that there's serious, conflict here. But no, I think personality-wise, and there's some serious stuff there. I think Trump's on the receiving end because he's so unpredictable, and he will blast out on them. But when it comes to the big policies of war and money issues in the Federal Reserve, I think they agree. They need this financial system that holds it together. And who's not involved in the military-industrial complex? Look at the Middle Eastern countries now that need our money and our weapons and all those things going on.
And look at how the media is also owned by a lot of companies with ties. I think CNN loves war more than they hate Trump.
That might be it, yeah.
But, it's interesting watching how the mainstream media works, because when this story broke last night, everyone was caught off guard, including the mainstream media. The AP, which has always been very mainstream and sympathetic to aggressive foreign policy, they reported initially that CENTCOM has no idea what the White House is talking about. State Department was caught off guard, was not discussed in advance with the national security agencies, and the Pentagon had no idea what the White House was talking about. Fast forward a little bit, and now AP's reporting this morning that, the Pentagon is seeing activity from the same airbase that they say launched the original chemical attacks. So we're supposed to believe that Assad is out there in the open, mixing up chemicals from the same base that was hit, and he's ready to go out there and kill civilians again.
It makes no sense. But, the other thing along with this that bothers me is things that Trump says that I believe. I mean, he wants to be a strong president. They all want to be strong president. A strong president is the one that doesn't get pushed around and they throw their weight around and they're the boss. And he claims if you have a weapon, you're supposed to use them. If you have a big bomb like he proved, the biggest bomb ever made, never been detonated, he showed that he's no wimp and dropped it on Afghanistan. Of course, that brought a lot of good things and peace to Afghanistan. Yeah. But I think he's very weak on the position of where does he stand on nuclear weapons? Well, all presidents always put weapons out. Essentially, all have said, we take nothing off the table, which is a code word. We'll be the first one to strike you, which is a horrible statement. But I think Trump is more capable of doing this. And that's why I think we live in very dangerous times. I happen to have reacted to what's going on today probably more strongly than usual. Usually I just try to take it in stride. Yeah, more of the same. It can lead to worse things. But there's awfully strong language in here, and that somebody has to pay the consequence. And if Assad does this, we have to attack Iran and Russia. I mean, and there are people who like this stuff in Washington, D.C. I mean, the neocons are delighted with this stuff. The neocons keep winning, because it must be an international organization because, when it comes to militarism, the other governments seem to fall in line.
What's interesting about this, maybe it's only a coincidence, but this is last night was the day after the blockbuster Seymour Hersh article that showed that the U.S. intelligence knew in April that Syria did not use poison gas. But the White House didn't care and launched the attack anyway. This is a blockbuster report. The next day, all of a sudden, they're saying, the White House is saying, another attack is coming. So maybe it's a coincidence, but it's very suspicious.
Well, you remember the story about the weapons of mass destruction that were about to hit us, back in the early part of this century. And reason why we had to protect the American people, we had to protect our freedoms, and we had to protect our Constitution by going and killing a couple 100,000 people. So one of these days, I think that this currently is going to get out of hand. This is really strong language. Maybe I'm completely wrong, I hope, and maybe tomorrow this is going to dissipate and Tillerson can call up Lavrov again. They talked yesterday.
It's amazing.
In spite of this. But I remember back in of the incident back before December 7th, there were diplomats from Japan in Washington talking about peace. So, peace in our time. But this is this to me is something that can't be ignored, but I think it's unpredictable too. You can't say what will happen even today or an hour later. But I'll tell you one thing. There's no evidence that people in Congress or in the administration will sit down and think about it a little bit and think, well,
No.
What are the ramifications? Even though I don't identify with what they call the realists, the realists at least might have said, even their interventions, but they're more inclined to say, maybe we ought to talk about this for a day or two, So, but we're not even hearing that. This administration is controlled by some people that I consider unrealistic.
Yeah, and going back to the April attack, it was the U.S. that blocked any international investigation on the ground of that site. So why did they block it? Why did they prevent us from getting the information? Because they wanted to continue to claim it was an attack without any proof. There still hasn't been any proof that there was an attack.
But isn't it amazing that this seems to be just impossible to believe, not relevant and not logical, that Assad would be this stupid. And Assad has to be communicating with his saviors, and that's Russia.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, no, you're not going to do that. And yet they put it out there, Trump dumps it out there, CNN pumps it up, and the Congress rolls over, and they're ready to put on more sanctions. They're, of course, arguing a little bit about that, but they just march on, and people are saying, this doesn't make any sense, that they would do this.
That is the big question. And rational people should ask themselves why at this point, when he is very carefully rushing to Deir ez-Zor and onto Raqqa to retake the eastern part of his country, and which would really consolidate his victory around the country, why, when they're having a conventional military assault on these areas, would he pause and say, you know what, I think I'm going to wait for a few days. I'm going to attack some civilians with some gas, alienate my ally, Russia, and have Trump have an excuse to bomb me. How does anyone believe this is possible?
Well, it is hard to believe. I hope that our concerns are unfounded, but unfortunately, I'm afraid that we're much closer to what might be going to happen than you can figure out by what Trump is saying or doing, or what the CNN. Well, we could listen to the news on CNN tonight and decide what's really going on. And what do we think? I come back to my conclusion. CNN and the foreign policy of Donald Trump might not be all that different, which is even scarier that they can have that uniformity on the policy. So how would you summarize this? What are your concerns, and what do you think is going to happen?
Russia will not react this time like they reacted last time if the U.S. attacks Syrian government forces on a pretext like this. I think that is for sure. How far they will go is anybody's guess.
There you go. And as usual, I argued the case that if we would mind our own business, we wouldn't have to worry about this. This wouldn't be an economic burden. It wouldn't be endangering the world. But the rhetoric got a little bit too strong for me today. It's much more annoying, much more frightening on what we're hearing, because there's escalation in tone and there's escalation on who's going to get blamed. Just not Assad. It's more than Assad has to go. And it means that if they pin an accusation with fake news that Assad is, we're not going to wait till he releases this, not until we see the smoking gun and a mushroom cloud, that we're going to have to go in, but it's not going to be Assad. We're just not going to march in with an army and get rid of Assad. What we have to do is go after Russia and Iran as well. That's a dangerous escalation in the rhetoric. And that's hope that the American people and others will start thinking about an alternative to this, and there is. There's one of a policy of non-intervention and trying to get along with people and not pretending that the world is going to be totally destroyed unless we make the world safe for democracy by taking over the world. That is a bad course for events. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report, RonPaulLibertyReport.com, and Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. Check them out. Subscribe. Great videos. Now, with the whole, always see activity in the base that we previously struck. If you don't remember, shortly after that strike, they had launched fighters out of that same airfield to attack ISIS locations. And some people go, it was a, little thumb at, haha, you struck the air base and we're still flying out of it. It was targeted bombing there that struck more hangars than anything. Did not strike the runway. Which, if you were trying to prevent them from operating, you think that's what they would have struck. But no, they struck the hangars. And is it just politics? I think some of it is, but I also believe there's underlining tensions already. And I still believe that, the reports that, Donald Trump basically just kind of gave the military industrial complex, green light to just go and do what they need to do, which in itself gets dangerous. So, with all that, I think there's a lot of propaganda going on that is really just causing more of a problem than there was to begin with in a situation that's already been manipulated and funded covertly. And we know again about Libya and Benghazi and the gun running there. So you have to ask, is that Trump or is that the military industrial complex? Now, according to all the reports that come out that they also noted on there, at first, no one but the White House knew what was going on. Apparently, everybody else said, "Oh, we haven't been briefed on anything like that." But then shortly after, come out and go, "Oh yeah." So this was more, I believe, to be a message. It's for you to determine what that message is. I'm like, don't do chemical attacks, but again, where is Trump getting his information from? And is he seeing outside of what people are telling him to believe? And hopefully, I already had it freeze up on me once. Okay. I don't know what's going on. Sorry, guys. Okay, we're going to give that a second there. I do have article here that I do want to get into. Now, you know, a lot of my listeners know that I'm on the fence when it comes to how we treat our immigration system. I believe, in immigration. I'm not, let's just build walls. Um, I do think we have to be careful when we start bringing in immigrants that we can't have too much of a background on, um, from countries that we're waging war basically with. You know, we have to be very careful, definitely when those are the people that are turning, to violent actions against us. And it's not their fault, it's not our fault, it's whoever is pulling the strings, on these military endeavors that we have. But I have one here. Trump's, this is from Reason.com. Trump's travel ban is legal but dumb. This week, the Supreme Court unblocked most aspects of President Trump's executive order limiting entry into the United States, signaling that the restrictions are likely to be upheld. That makes sense because the reason that two federal appeals court offered for upholding injunctions against Trump's order are unpersuasive, but the fact that Trump's policy is legal does not make it smart. The original version of Trump's order was issued in great haste a week after he took office, and it showed the 90-day ban on entry by citizens of 7 Muslim majority countries: Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, applied to current visa holders, including people working, studying in the United States, and legal permanent residents, um, who were barred from returning home after traveling abroad. Adding to the confusion, the travel ban took effect immediately, stranding residents and visitors in mid-trip without notice. The result was dismay and disorder at airports around the world. Officials, travelers, and lawyers grappled with the new policy. After the order was blocked by the courts, Trump issued a revised version on March 6th, clarifying that the travel ban did not apply to legal permanent residents who have a right to due process when the government tries to prevent their reentry, or to current visa holders whose hosts may have um, standing to sue. Notably, the order issued by the Supreme Court on Monday says that while the case is pending, the travel ban should not be enforced against visa applicants or would be. Sorry, guys. My Skype was reconnecting or something to UCY radio. Okay, it looks like it's good. Start beeping at me and everything. Okay. Now, if we're looking at this travel ban, the problem we're going to have with it is people are going to come from other countries that they probably illegally came to. They'll get, passports, fake passports. They'll get in. We've seen influxes through, Mexico of, non-Mexican citizens. And if we really want to try to prevent terrorists from coming over here, I think it starts over in those countries. How about we focus less on overthrowing governments and look at the people that are leaving going, we'll track them. We'll see what ones look like the bad people because we know they've been there. There's been, claims of, rape and murder by, groups of people that are moving, with that mass immigration that was going on over in Europe. And there were abilities to track these people, but, let's overthrow government. Because again, we're creating the problem there that's creating a situation where people need to go. So now you have it where they are literally a catch-22. You take in the immigrants because really it's not their fault. But at the same time, the terrorists are going to come in. You stop the terrorists from coming in, but then you also, make it hard for actual people seeking refuge and potentially lead to, a murder or something of immigrants trying to leave. And, you have the Christian immigrants that are really running from the radicals over there because they are number one targets, along with women and children. And men are killed off, the women, children sold off or killed, depending on, how old. Boys are turning into soldiers and I'm sure, molested. But, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit relied on a different rationale when it upheld an injunction against Trump's order saying he exceeded his statutory authority because he did not make an evidence-based determination that admitting the people he wants to exclude would be detrimental to the interests of the United States. But that was really just another way of saying that Trump's policy which is supposedly aimed at protecting Americans from terrorists, is half-baked and empirically unsound. That much is true since 1975, no terrorist from any of the countries covered by the travel ban has killed anyone in the United States, and the odds of being killed by a refugee are infinitesimal. In any case, it has never been clear why a travel ban was necessary for Trump to deliver the extreme vetting he promised. Even the total and complete Muslim ban he originally proposed was supposed to last only as long as it took to figure out what is going on, which according to executive orders means 3 months. Trump has been president for more than 5 months. By his own account, he could have made any necessary improvements in traveler screening by now. His failure to do so provides further evidence that his policy is just for show. And one thing I brought up before was where's the ban for Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Now, we might not have had an attack from those countries here in the United States, but we're also waging war there now. That's where ISIS is now. In Syria. And that's where the refugees are coming from. So I understand that. But at the same time, he arms Saudi Arabia. And really, I believe in the Founding Fathers' way of looking at it. You just don't get entangling alliances. Now they eventually did, and it's persisted, but to the extent of, what now? Now we don't even declare war because we're so far into being involved everywhere, militarily, that we allow them not to call it war anymore and get away with it. So then they don't have to declare. And a lot of it also comes down to you can't declare war on ideology. You can't fight a war against it. It just won't work. It will actually do the opposite. And that's even more evident, I think, today. Okay, we are going to move on here. Hope that wasn't thunder. That we're going to miss out on the rain. Hopefully it wasn't. Okay. Now, something that was covered in the Ron Paul Liberty Report is CNN. And I want to play this Stefan Molyneux. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's a little long. You can go check the full clip out. Stefan Molyneux on YouTube. But I want to get into this about CNN and their fake news, which we've known. Many of us that have been involved in this for a long time know from way back how fake CNN has been in the past. And it's not hard to see that they're not too far away from where they were back then, just with fancier equipment. for me, they truly are more of a propaganda. These are the same people that had that missing flight, Malaysian flight, I think it was, just 24/7 for, a month, 2 months, I forget. It was just nuts. They did not, let up off of it. It was just, there was nothing being found, nothing going on, just, it's been, 96 hours and a half and still nothing. Kind of, what, Gerardo Rivera, I think it was, that, what was it? I think it was him or John Stossel. Might have been John Stossel. One of them had a news clip where they were uncovering Al Capone's safe or whatever, and didn't find anything. It was a big hype thing. And then you also look at the tax return, Trump's tax return, big hype. CNN, too, on top of it, just, it's hard to look at them. Now, not saying everything they do is fake. Actually, I don't think I'll play this clip. I'm just going to keep talking. But definitely go check it out. CNN is fake news on Stefan Molyneux. But look how they've covered war. Look how they covered non-issues recently. The Trump-Russia collusion. That didn't exist. People had to resign. It's hard to take, CNN serious on anything. Because more than likely, even if there is any truth to it, what they're going to portray is not going to be that. They are going to hype it up, do whatever they have to. Instead, I want to play a We Are Change one on CNN. This one's a shorter clip too. A post-CNN world and the future of journalism.
This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org here in New York City, and today I am joined by the one and only Tim Pool. And in this video, we are going to be discussing what is journalism, the latest CNN debacle, and of course, I think most importantly, the future of journalism. Now, Tim, I wanted to talk to you because you've been talking a lot about what is journalism, and I think it will be good to get your perspective. What do you consider journalism to be?
Honestly, I have no idea, right? I didn't go to journalism school. I started doing what I do because I wanted to learn, travel, experience. I wanted to personally better understand other people, right? I want to go and sit down with liberals, conservatives, progressives, far right, whatever, and just better understand their perspectives. And then people would ask me about it. Oh, what did you learn? And I'd be like, oh, well, this guy actually said this. And so I think what we started seeing recently in the past few years is that there's a huge market opportunity for confirmation bias news where people just want to hear. I think, actually, let's jump right into the James O'Keefe video where the supervising producer was saying that there's a lot of people who want to see the president scrutinized, and so CNN is able to just rag on Trump nonstop. But if they did the same thing to Obama, they would have lost viewers. That's what we're seeing.
And the opposite with Fox News.
Right, exactly. I think journalism, what is it? It doesn't matter if you support or oppose the president. It doesn't matter if you are progressive or conservative, whatever. It just matters that you're honest, right? So I've never really talked about my political stances on things because I didn't think it mattered. I don't care about my opinion. But it became such an issue with news outlets calling me alt-right and far-right that I actually took the compass test and showed people I'm center-left libertarian, right? I align more with like the SJWs on a lot of policies than I do with the alt-right, especially the alt-right. But the big difference, and I think what kind of unites people who are Trump supporters, who are these independent viewers, as well as people like Dave Rubin and Sargon Avocad, is that we're trying as hard as we can to be honest, because this is what I say, we don't care about who's right, we care about what's right. And that means we're willing to have an honest conversation, and if we're wrong, we'll flat out be like, we were wrong about that one. Let's keep talking about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing, because we've seen the media landscape change so significantly, especially being so polarized within the last few months. And the debate has become, is journalism activism? Is journalism totally being unhonest, totally being unbiased, totally being fair and always truthful? But I think the truth is always gray. Just like every story we cover, there's always a big gray zone. For me personally, I believe journalism is about being the eyes and ears of the people and doing due diligence for the majority of human beings. But sadly, I think with editing, no matter what it is, our experiential bias will come through, because we have to take a big event, we have to take a long story that happened or a huge protest that happened and select what's interesting, cut it down and give it to you. And I think in that cutting down, our perceived biases will naturally come true.
Right. I agree, but what really pisses me off, you hear this from mostly progressives saying there's no such thing as objective journalism. And I have to explain to people that objectivity does not mean omniscience, right? I don't go to an event and just think I can see the hearts and minds of every single person there and truly know. But what I tell people is objective journalism is more like, imagine we're standing here and across the street, there's two guys fighting. If you ask me what happened, I could objectively say, the guy on the left punched the guy on the right. Right? That's objective reporting. Now, if one of the guys happened to be my friend, that's biased reporting. And so what ends up happening is you get people who have, they're involved. They're trying to win this political fight. They have political beliefs. Their friends have these political beliefs, and they refuse to lose. Then they become journalists, or they get hired by companies, and the information they choose is purposefully omitting information, right? And I'm going to call out Mike.com on this because I mentioned this in my last video. But in Janesville, Wisconsin, there was a woman who punched an old man in the face and then got pepper sprayed. Mike edited out the part where she punched him in the face. They did mention she punched someone in the face, but they cut the video so you can't actually see her do it. That's on purpose. That's not an accident. It was literally 2 seconds of the video they could have left in. So there's a difference when we're trying our hardest to edit down a video of a protest or a riot, and some things get cut, and then there's selectively pulling out things because we don't want to upset our political ideology, which is total BS.
Yeah, and it's a deep gray zone that we're talking about and trying to expand now, because obviously the way some kind of radical protesters have been treating us affects our protest coverage. Because it's like, okay, I'm not going to go into that fray because they're going to attack me. A lot of people who are in our business who do get attacked do have an emotional response and then automatically become Blue Lives Matter fans.
Okay, I was just in San Bernardino a couple weeks ago it was on the 10th for the anti-Sharia protest. I go over to the anti-Sharia, the Trump side, and people are like, "Hey, how's it going?" I ask them questions, and they argue a little bit back and forth. I go over to the counter-protest side, and some dude starts getting in my face and coming at me. And so I know that one side will not physically assault me, and one side is more likely to. It's not a guarantee. And absolutely that's going to affect my coverage. But here's what I do. I flat out say, when people in the comments are like, "Hey, Tim, go over to that side. You're spending too much time on one side," I do it. Yeah. And the truth is, even though, you can look at my live stream from San Bernardino or from LA, even though I know these people are going to attack me, I still spent more time on the counter-protest side than I did on the other side, because people in the comment section were saying, this is what we want to see. So the people watching were like, we understand the narrative from the the anti-Sharia side. Let's get a better perspective from the counter-protest side. And I went over and I did that.
It's very difficult because you also need to be very emotionally sound, because sometimes those radical protesters are in the right and sometimes they are persecuted incorrectly by police departments. And it's very hard for some people when they push us away to get those stories. And it takes someone who's not emotionally unstable to get those stories and still be able to put themselves at the risk to cover those things as honestly as they can. And it's extremely difficult because of that kind of past experience and that emotional thing. But then this is kind of brings into, do we always have to cater to what the audience wants to see? Because this is an perspective that I have, because I believe human lives are important. The deaths of human lives are important. If you talk about last month, the U.S. bombings, they have killed more innocent civilians than all the latest terrorist attacks within Europe within the last 12 years. In 12 years, more people, in the last month, more people have died because of the U.S. bombings in Syria than they died in all of Europe within the last 12 years from their terrorist attacks. We see skewed media coverage, and people don't care about those innocent civilians. People don't care about Yemen. But to me, it's an important story that doesn't get clicks, that doesn't get likes, that doesn't get shares. But to me, it's a human life, and those numbers matter.
People are so focused on fighting the left and the right. The people on the left, let's be fair. There are absolutely people on the left in this country who are conscious about what's going on with the bombings in Syria and Yemen, and they protest that stuff. They really do. But the most vocal protesters are complaining about Trump supporters being Nazis, white supremacists, and not actually focusing on what the government is doing. So what I've noticed is that when it comes to these protests, too many people are fighting each other. And look, I got to be honest. If there's two people with differing political opinions and one person hits the other person, you're wrong. But if you want to come out and protest in the streets against what the government is doing, yeah, we have a right to do that. I disagree with property destruction and vandalism. I understand there's a lot of people who agree with that. It is what it is. But there's a huge difference in looking at a police force in full riot gear throwing tear gas at protesters and a bunch of people in black masks going and beating up civilians because they disagree with their opinions. Yeah.
I mean, there's a huge difference, and this is why I wanted to talk about the latest Project Veritas expose that came out yesterday. There's another one coming out in just a few minutes, where even and this is an important aspect that I should have mentioned in my video yesterday, but I didn't. The senior producer was actually on the medical team and in charge of the medical research that was done on CNN. He wasn't in charge of international and foreign politics. And I think that's a very important discernment to make. But he even said himself that the CEO said, okay, great job on covering the climate thing for a day. Now go back to Russia, cover Russia, hit Russia, whether it's true or not, keep hitting it. And they've been caught. Just a few days ago, 3 CNN reporters had to resign because they ran a story from their anonymous source that was, again, untrue, and they were running more Russia-Trump-related stories that were just outright propaganda, admittedly, to get clicks. So, this is where I think we also have to draw the line in catering to our audience, because if we do that, are we no better than CNN?
I get people tweeting at me all the time saying, Tim, cover this story, cover that story, and obviously I don't or can't do every story. I don't know what the core of my audience wants to watch. You can't really tell. But what I will say is there's a difference between someone, I'm on the ground live and they say, hey, Tim, can you go film this and show me what's going on? And me looking at my analytics and saying, everyone seems to love hating on Trump, so I'll do that. Let's look at the James O'Keefe stuff. We'll take what this guy, his name is John Bonifield, take it with a grain of salt because he was like a health reporter. However, he does work at CNN. So you can't just discredit the things he's saying. Clearly, he's working next to these people. He's talking to his coworkers, and he has an idea of how people there feel when they report on this stuff. Is he working on the Trump investigation stuff? It doesn't seem like it. Maybe. I don't know. But he does work in Atlanta, sitting next to these same people, and they talk. So I kind of feel like it is. I give it a little more trust. I tend to believe that this is true. This is what CNN believes. It's not so much that they're catering to their audience, but they're catering to their advertisers. They want to get as many views as they can. The ratings got to get them up so they can sell ads. Technically, it's catering to your audience, but I think if you look at if the audience is saying we're interested in these stories, it's fine to do a story on it, but the story should then be, we've found no evidence with the Trump-Russia scandal. You asked us for coverage. We didn't find anything significant. Stay tuned. If we find anything, we'll tell you about it.
That won't get clicks, and Anderson Cooper won't be able to get his hair gel and his hair coloring dye that he uses.
I heard he never washes his pants.
Conspiracy theorist.
No, that was on like a New Year's 2016 or something. They made a joke about it, and they said that he smelled like. I'm not trying to be a dick. They were like, "Your pants smell terrible, Anderson," and he laughed.
Anyway, I think the reason big media institutions are failing is because they're profit-driven. They're driven politically for their side as well, and I think that's why they're going to fail. And I think that's why independent media like Tim and myself and others will prosper in the future, because at least we could show some vulnerability. At least we could tell you we're not always right. At least we could tell you we do our best, and we don't always get it perfect all the damn time.
Well, the thing is, relative to CNN, we're broke. CNN's like, hey, we'll make $10 million if we rag on Trump for another 3 months. And I'm like, if I do anything crazy, I don't know. I have people on Patreon, and I don't know what they believe. So all I know is that if I produced garbage news, they would stop funding me. Because I don't know what their politics are. So all I can do is hope that by being as honest as possible and trying to do the best I can continue doing this, as a career.
I have the same point of view with a big slant against government and authority and the establishment, and that's my perceived bias, and you guys know it, and that's where I come from when I do my reporting. But what Tim brought up is a very important aspect. Yeah, there's not a lot of shekels in this, but we're doing this, and we do our best. We could shill for anti-Trump or Donald Trump and make a lot more money and have a lot more viewers, but that's not right.
I used to work for a Disney company. Yeah, let's talk about money.
This video is going to be called Tim Pool Exposed.
Yeah, Tim Pool Exposed.
Working for the Mickey Mouse.
High-paying job, turns down high-paying offers to make a significantly less money, and because, you know what, man? When you work for these big companies, every day, when you know that they want you to push this BS narrative, and I refuse to do it, you get this pain in your chest. And it starts hurting worse and worse as time goes on, to where finally I was just like, dude, I can't do this. And you know what? I resisted a lot of it. And getting out of that, I'm just like, I'm free. I feel so good now.
Meanwhile, I've been telling Tim before he started working for those companies not to do it. I told Tim, he's laughing because he knows this is the truth. I was like, Tim, don't do it. It's not worth your soul. Okay. I said the same thing. Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street. Occupy Wall Street. No. Occupy Wall Street ended. And you're like, oh, we got these offers. I got all these offers to work for these. I was like, never. It's not worth my soul. You're like, no, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, Tim, no.
Okay. I'll say maybe a little naive on my part, but my argument was, I don't genuinely believe all these companies are evil. I still don't think they're evil. And I really didn't, what I assume they mostly do is they hire people who they think will say what they want them to say, not force people to say things. And that's wrong, actually.
That's evil. And I'm keeping my soul. I get a lot of offers. Tim's independent. I'm independent. If you want to see our media organizations grow, and if you want to see us take over the mainstream media by doing their job better, you have to donate to our Patreons. So check out patreon.com/wearechange. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Stay tuned for more real in-depth analysis news with us two imperfect individuals who will say we're wrong when we're wrong.
We Are Change. WeAreChange.org. We Are Change on YouTube. Check them out. Subscribe. Now, there is a lot of bias anymore in media, but a lot of it anymore, like I do here, is news mixed with commentary. It's one of those deals that when you see the system is a corrupt system, you're going to have a bias when you look at these things. But it's also factual stuff that's going on. These things are happening. Here's what I believe. We're not out there going, Trump and Russia, they're colluding. We know it. we're going to keep digging until we prove it, but we know it's true. There's a lot of issues that we don't know what's going on. We don't know all the facts, and I've said that many of times. You know, I believe that this could be going on, but there is no factual evidence to actually prove that. What we try to do is look at what direction something is going and warn you. You know, not saying he will, but if they use that power, it could be they could become dictatorial. It's not always the president that allows these laws to get passed or signs these laws or wants these laws. It's at what point do we get someone that's crazy enough to look at all this that we pass and use it to their advantage? Now, some of these laws that are out there, they're kind of tricky because, again, you know, some of them are in wartime or in national security, you know, for national security. And that right there is one of the scariest terms, national security. It's a matter of national. That gives them power over so much. And these are things that, you know, very few people, but Ron Paul, his son Rand Paul, even Ted Cruz has brought up some of it. But really, Rand Paul has led a very strong defensive and offensive on that issue. One of the very few that have steadfast on those issues. I have an article here. This is from liberty.me, Jeffrey Tucker. Class and race are never excused to gloat over state atrocities. Even with all the news of terrorism around the world, there is something especially chilling and horrifying about the case of 22-year-old Otto Warmbier. Hearing the news of his death wounded me, and I admit more so the usual litany of suffering around the world. If there's anything redeeming to come of this, it should be a wake-up call to all of us to change the way we think about human rights and stop a terrible trajectory of public rhetoric. It tells you all you need to know that the regime believed that this was a high crime. Here was a remarkable young man, an outstanding student, and by all accounts an exuberant and warm person. Even if none of this were true, he still had a right not to be kidnapped and killed by extraordinarily evil government. One of the last surviving full-blown totalitarian states in the world, one run by a leadership cult of the most disgusting type, but this is exactly what happened. He was on a student trip to China and decided on his own to take a side trip to North Korea. The ad was posted by Young Pioneer Tours promising budget travel to destinations your mother would rather you stay away from. All seemed fine until he was boarding a plane to return to China. Suddenly, North Korean officials arrested him, accusing him of stealing a propaganda poster from the hotel. According to NPR, he was trying to bring back a memento of his trip, which he planned to take back to Wyoming in exchange for a used car. He tried to remove a sign, but it proved too unwieldy and left it on the floor. It tells you all you need to know that the regime believed that this was a high crime. After an hour-long trial, the government posted this apology video, which is one of the most heart-wrenching things will ever watch. It's a forced confession straight out of the worst dystopian novel you ever read. He was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. His parents could do nothing. Not even the U.S. government could intervene. There was no jurisdiction. Otto was trapped in a horrid prison state. Something terrible happened while he was there. The government eventually released him to his parents, citing humanitarian concerns. When he arrived for the reunion, he was essentially brain dead. He died 2 days later. The autopsy showed the North Korean government's explanation that he had contracted botulism to be a lie. The disgrace of the left. The news of this case first came out more than a year and a half ago, and I distinctly remember a strange I can't pronounce that word, emerging from the political left, almost like this kid had it coming. Actually, not almost. This is what some people said. Nick Gillespie at Reason dug up the archives to find the evidence on Comedy Central's The Nightly Show. Host Larry Wilmore said, "Frat bro, privilege not valid in totalitarian dystopias. North Korea is a playground for college pranks. Kim Jong-un isn't a fictional character from a Seth Rogen movie. And Pyongyang isn't some game you play with Coors Light and Solo cups. It's just tough for me to have much sympathy for this guy and his crocodile tears. What is it that would possess anyone to express such sentiments based on class and race alone?" Then there is this from Ebony. "I'm willing to bet my last dollar that he was aware of the political climate in that country, but privilege is a hell of a drug. The high of privilege told him that North Korea's history of making examples out of Americans who dare challenge their rigid legal system in any way was no match for his alabaster American privilege. This is incredibly wicked rhetoric, and probably both writers have some regret in retrospect. And yet, what is it that would possess anyone to express such sentiments based on class and race alone, as if this young man who had never flaunted some imagined privilege deserved his fate, and that it should be a lesson to all people of his class and race. The torture state. As dreadful as this Warren Bear case is, it is paradigmatic of the totalitarian behavior of states at war. Legally, the U.S. and North Korea are still at war. This does everything become justified. This is true not just in this terror state. Every state uses war as a reason to trample human rights. It's a form of identity politics taken to a different level. New details are emerging from the CIA's torture program that was active from 2002 to 2009, along with the testimony of two psychologists who ran the program out of a secret prison. Their private company was paid $81 million to apply enhanced interrogation techniques to detainees. This too sounds like a scene from dystopia. What immediately came to my mind when hearing of the techniques, which include the use of insects, was the trained psychologist torturer known as Scarecrow from Batman Begins. Waterboarding is only the most famous techniques included. This one for sleep deprivation, in the words of one of the psychologists. There is a tether anchored to the ceiling in the center of the detention cell. The detainee is handcuffed and they are attached to the tether in a way that they can't lie down or rest against the wall. They're monitored to make sure they don't get edema if they hang on the cuffs too much. What useful information came out of this program, which U.S. taxpayers paid for? Nothing so far as anyone knows. But it is likely that hundreds of lives were ruined, to say nothing of the countless lives lost in the wars of those years. The blowback of a growing army of dedicated terrorists is not hard to predict. And yet you don't have to look for small-time pundits to find a defense of these actions. They were overtly defended at the highest levels by Dick Cheney, John McCain, and the head of the CIA itself, and the sitting president of the United States. Their statements are backed by partisan supporters who believe that being from the wrong country and holding to the wrong religion is sufficient reason to rob a person of basic human rights. It's a form of identity politics taken to a different level. It's a game everyone plays. And read the rest of that article. It's a really, really good written article. And, he covers, why we shouldn't do this no more. Talking about the liberal side of it and more about a dystopian type world and the idea of freedom. Like I said, it's a really well written article. The simple fact that, I do have a lot of, it's really sad what happened. But again, too, on top of it, you go there knowing what's going on. I think that travel company somewhat, maybe have a little fault in it. But again, too, I really wonder if he knew what he was doing was that big of a crime in their eyes. But really, if you're trying to go to North Korea, basically anything you do could be a crime, and they might, take just, and that doesn't make what they did right or anything like that. I'm not trying to make that point. I'm trying to make the point, like, beware. This could happen to you. Extremely bad idea to go to North Korea. What do we do from here? It's really hard to tell with the state of the world as we see it now, and our ability to focus on, North Korea and their continued growth of long-range missiles is becoming a real issue. Another extremely big issue is China. What will happen there? And I think China would do something financially to us to hurt us. What that would be, I have no clue. But they're manipulators just like we are, and they can, since, we have this world economy now, they can affect it. Okay, we are coming up on the last half hour. So if I can get this clip up, I'll play this last clip here. Maybe. I want people to go check out Ron Paul Liberty Report. Go watch Security or Surveillance, Edward Snowden. There's a second part of this, too, that was also put out. That's the part I want to play. It's a short clip. We'll go ahead and dive into this short clip here real quick and cover it.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul.
Daniel, we're going to do something different today. We're going to do a program that we have never done before, and that is it's going to be a continuation of the interview we did with Ed Snowden just recently. And the interesting part is that this was not planned, and so it'll be a little bit different, but we enjoyed a conversation after the program was over, and we think we got some interesting ideas and interesting conversation from Edward.
It was really interesting because, the cameras were rolling. We finished the show, and Edward said, hey, Dr. Paul, I've got a question for you if you don't mind. And go ahead and keep the cameras rolling if you want. And we were surprised. We didn't know what to expect. It actually turned into just a nice, relaxed, comfortable exchange.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it too, and that gives you an idea about, how you can vary your interviews a little bit. And the more relaxed we are, and the and the guest is, the better it is. But I enjoyed it, and I hope the viewing audience will too, and I'm sure they will if they will take a look at not only this program but even the original Edward Snowden program.
Yeah, that we did earlier in the week. I do want to say one thing, actually, if you don't mind, and this is good news. We didn't do it earlier, but we have passed 100,000 subscribers to the Ron Paul Liberty Report. And I'm sure the excitement over having Edward Snowden on the show helped. But our audience is pushing us up, so please keep getting your friends to subscribe and keep watching the show.
Right, and that helps us get new people to come and appear on our program. But I do want to thank everybody for tuning in today. And please stand by because we will now show you this very special extra interview with Edward Snowden.
There's actually one last thing, excuse me.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe just to see if you guys want to cut it in the interview. If it doesn't work, you don't have to. But I was thinking I could ask you a question, Dr. Paul, that's, again, just about the intelligence stuff. And I think it would be interesting for people. I'm not sure I've ever heard it from your perspective. But if you guys are still rolling, if you're capturing this footage, I can just go right into it.
Okay, and what would the question be? See if I know the answer.
We're rolling, Sir Khan?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so Dr. Paul, one question actually that I have for you is in the intelligence community, at, again, the working level, not the policy level, everybody is taught sort of a single axiom. All the work that they do is designed to inform policymakers, right, our legislature, our executive branch, our legislative branch, to understand what the facts are so they can make the best decision. They call it sort of providing informational advantage or decisional advantage. And you were in Congress for an extraordinary amount of time. You have experience that many people don't have. And the one question that I've always wondered is, in all of your time in Congress, how many times would you say the intelligence community actually provided some reports that they briefed to you, right? Not specifically what they said, whether it's in closed session or open session or whatever, but they came to you, and the information was so material, so impactful, so vital and necessary and valuable that they had been breaking all these laws to get it, that it actually changed your vote. Can you recall a time like that? Well, was it regular? Did it happen?
First thing is they never came to me because they probably figured I had my mind made up on the issue. But they would invite us to come to them on special events leading up to the Iraq War. They had a lot of briefings, and these were special people, knew everything. And I went to one briefing one time in my whole career, and I said, this is nothing more than propaganda. And I can read what they're talking about in the paper if I want. And so I thought it was wrong. Now, a good example of this is Walter Jones, who was converted from being pro-war, Iraq War, who finally figured out, that they were lying to him. And then he became absolutely one of the best anti-war people now, demanding to know the truth. But once he realized they were lying us into war, he had it with him. So no, they don't come. They never came to me. It's one of these things that they only come to a group when they want to try to pass out their propaganda. And of course, that didn't sell well with me.
That is one of the suspicions that people would, I think, get when they look at the sort of open hearings in Congress, where they never seem to be revealing anything new. And they seem to have a clear agenda. But they're not actually informing Congress so much as attempting to influence Congress.
Absolutely true. That is what they're doing. They're not interested in the information. That's why I don't think that the activity that I was involved in, I recognized the limitations. And I was sort of like you. I wasn't going to change the world by being in Congress. But I knew there was an audience someplace. And I was always, if I gave a speech on the floor, the members weren't there. They weren't listening. They didn't care. My audience was elsewhere because I believe you have to change people's attitude. And that's why your work has been so important, because people said, could this be true? And you have credibility. You've been there, and you have risked a lot in order to get this information out. And this is what the country and the world needs, are the truth tellers. You know, there's a famous saying that I've used a lot of time, truth is treason in an empire of lies. And we live in an empire of lies, and that is why we need more truth tellers, just as you are.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, very good. I'm glad you brought on an extra little tidbit there. That was nice. I want to thank the listeners for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. I hope you found this program interesting. And I also want to remind you, if you have not seen part 1 of the Ed Snowden interview, that can be found easily on this webpage. I want to thank you for tuning in today, but please come back to the Liberty Report soon.
Ron Paul Liberty Report, RonPaulLibertyReport.com, Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. Check them out, subscribe. Check out the full Edward Snowden interview over there on Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. Now, we're always told that, all the surveillance is to protect you. But we haven't seen any evidence of that. No true evidence that it's really effective when they do the mass surveillance. And then, they come up with all their excuses, one being what Edward Snowden brought up, and, it's to, this intelligence gathering is to help tell Congress what they need to know to do their job, and the president, and everyone else. And then what, Ron Paul pointed out, we get the same propaganda, they're getting the same propaganda from their intelligence that we get from our mainstream media, which ends up being false, like the babies in the incubators. So if this intelligence is actually giving us the right intelligence for these issues, what are they doing? A lot of it is just the simple fact. I don't think they're going, hey, let's, the people that are pushing for it, that are in the field of this, they're not pushing for it because, they want to bring down, American rights and all this. I think they're so entrenched in, this is our job. We make a lot of good money doing this. You stop it, we're all out of a job. I don't think that's true, but in the sense that they would be completely out of a job, there might be some, but there is a need for intelligence. But the domestic intelligence doesn't seem to, whether it be here in America or, over in Europe somewhere, it doesn't stop the terrorist attacks. But what ends up happening is a lot of everyday citizens are caught up in petty, a lot of times victimless crimes, and their lives ruined over it. Should we actually wonder why this is going on, or should we understand why this is going on? That this has become one of the most profitable areas. But it's not actually successful in what they claim it to be successful in. Now, I do want to move on to one last thing. We are at the last half hour now of this broadcast here on UCY.TV. I have this one about Illinois, and many of you also know Illinois is also the state that is in financial trouble now. Illinois legislature passes asset forfeiture reform. The Illinois legislature overwhelmingly passed a bill Friday tightening the state's civil asset forfeiture laws and shifting the burden of proof onto the government to show why it should be allowed to keep seized property. The vote came on the heels of an investigative report from Reason earlier this month showing lower income neighborhoods of Chicago were hit hardest by asset forfeiture. Reason's report analyzing more than 23,000 property seizures over the last 5 years was cited by Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox in a letter to the Chicago Tribune Saturday urging Republican Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner to sign the bill into law. Fox wrote the civil asset forfeitures disproportionate impact on poor minority communities was an injustice. The bill approved unanimously in the state Senate and with only one dissenting vote in the House would raise the standard of evidence for forfeiture from probable cause to preponderance of evidence and bar seizures under $500 in many drug cases. I had a sneeze. Sorry about that. It would also abolish a requirement of residents challenging seizures that they pay a 10% bond on the estimate value of their property to file a petition and expedite hearings for owners claiming innocence. Civil rights groups, including the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois, say current bond requirements, a slow appeals process, and low standards of proof for the government make appealing a property seizure, especially for low-income residents, a Sisyphean task. Overall, civil liberties groups are pleased with the bill. The main thing is shifting the burden of proof clearly onto the state and relieving property owners of having to prove their innocence. Ben Rudell, a staff attorney at the ACLU of Illinois, said. Bill sponsors reached a compromise with law enforcement groups, narrowing the sweep of the original bill, dropping a required criminal conviction before property could be forfeited. The compromise allowed the bill to proceed with the backing of state law enforcement, such as Fox, a reform-minded state prosecutor for the Chicago area. Fox became the first African-American woman to be elected to the position in November 2016, defeating incumbent Cook County State's Attorney Anita Alvarez, who was pillared for her handling of the fatal police shooting of Laquan McDonald. As state's attorney, I'm committed to taking violent criminals off the streets and pursuing innovative ways to do so, Fox wrote. But I also understand and fiercely defend the presumption of innocence. Our justice system was built on that idea, and public trust in our system depends on it. We deserve a data-informed justice system and smart policies that truly protect our communities, and we need our governor to help us deliver. Prosecutors whose budgets are often padded by asset forfeiture revenue are usually among the most vocal opponents of reform measures. Rudell says he was thrilled to have the prosecutor in the most populous county in the state to be on board. Hopefully this will persuade the governor that he needs to not think very long and hard before signing the bill. There are some steps states' attorney offices could take on their own to better ensure a fair justice system. As Rudell notes, the Cook County State's Attorney Office has practically unlimited discretion to decide which forfeiture cases to pursue or drop. The CCSAO has been very active in the number of forfeiture cases it brings. Rudell says, we hope that in addition to Fox's support of the bill, we'll see the state's attorney office putting more scrutiny on the seizures that come to them and using the discretion they have to say, you know what, we are not going to proceed on this forfeiture case based on the facts before us. According to public records reviewed by Reason, the CCSAO declined to pursue forfeiture in just 2,100 of the 23,000 cases brought to it by law enforcement between 2012 and 2017. Asset forfeiture is a huge revenue stream for Illinois. A joint report by the ACLU of Illinois and the Illinois Policy Institute found that the state ranked in $319 million in forfeiture funds over the last decade. The vast majority of that goes back into the coffers of state's attorney's office and police departments. The legislation would also create new public reporting requirements, bringing more transparency to how law enforcement in Illinois utilize asset forfeiture. And you can check out that article at reason.com. Go check it out. Now, asset forfeiture has been going on for a long time. I've never had to personally deal with it, but it seems to be getting even more and more hearing about it. But when you look at asset forfeiture, they can pull someone over that cash to paycheck. They have cash on them. Or you might be doing drugs because you're in a bad neighborhood and you look like a gangbanger. And before they didn't even really have to have any burden of proof. They just had to claim that, this is what we know. We know that, this person's that way. Or simply never fight it because, well, most of those people can't. Like the article said, they target a lot of the low income. And then, of course, public opinion of people in low income areas is they're probably doing drugs or dealing drugs. And then you also pit people like that in a suit and a badge and give them a gun and a car with a whole bunch of flashy lights. And they still believe that. So that's where they're going to target. You don't tend to see them going around asset forfeiture on, wealthy people. Wonder why. Probably because the wealthy people don't carry cash anymore. They have cards for everything. Where low income people, they cash a check and they take cash because, well, they got to go buy groceries, pay this bill and pay that bill, and they're done. They're out of money. If Illinois, out of all states, can start reining in asset forfeiture in the middle of financial trouble, I think we can get it done around the United States. You're talking about a state that's literally their whole budget is going to have to go to pay pensions. These departments probably were heavily relying on asset forfeiture already. Now you got a state that is out of money, and police departments now losing out on more. Because if they have to prove a case, that's going to hurt them quite a bit. Now they're going to have to know they are dealing with a drug dealer. That ain't just cash a check from a legit job, because they will get their money back. But again, it should be positive news. One, they're ringing in asset forfeiture. Two, they're doing it in Illinois, which is the state going bankrupt. That should be hopeful news for the rest of us. Hopefully we can start ringing it in everywhere. Fox News poll that just came out about an hour ago, 27% favor Senate GOP health care plan, but most want Obamacare changes. Well, why isn't there a lot of support? A lot of people, again, are calling this another Obamacare light. Why isn't there support if they want change? Well, it's a GOP thing. They're not talking to Democrats. Not thinking, that would help anything. And again, it's Obamacare light. That's where my bias comes in. We're still having some type of government-ran healthcare. As long as you have government going, well, we'll just change some stuff and put a new name on it. You're still saying government has the right to dictate. People go, oh, it's a right. No, you don't have a right to health care, because that means you have the right to force another human being to give you health care. Whether, you're forcing the doctor to do it because you're going to have to if the doctor's not getting paid with, hundreds of thousands of dollars and, student loans and whatever else they have, home, rent if they can't afford a house. And then, once that stuff gets paid off, they're making pretty good money. But they're also saving lives. You want the burger flipper to make $15 an hour minimum wage, but then you want to complain because doctors get too much money? Oh, we're not talking about the doctor's pay. Well, you are if you're talking about dictating health care. If you're talking about a single-payer system. That means that now the government's going to dictate what that doctor gets paid. Doctors don't feel like they're getting paid. You think they're going to keep practicing that? You're talking about doctors that are on call most of the time. Any moment they could be called in to help someone. Help out a lot of people. They're the ones that you hope are there on the scene. You usually don't have a doctor bill if there happens to be a doctor on the scene if someone's choking or, you faint, you have to go to the hospital, they call 911. You don't get your a doctor bill, then the, EMS bill, and then the hospital bill. You get the EMS and the hospital bill. Ron Paul had talked about, when he was a doctor, people come in without health care, insurance. He would treat them. If they didn't have money, didn't have insurance, he would treat them. You don't have to force people to do that. But propaganda will convince you that you do. And that's really what's going on right now. It's propaganda city. You have all these people protesting healthcare is the right. Healthcare is the right. No, you have a right to seek healthcare. And not everybody seeks what government and others call healthcare. Some people go more natural routes. People like me sometimes look at other people that just sit there and take pills for everything as the people that are out of it. And then you want, me to help pay for them. Now, at the end of the day, though, I don't think we're ever going to see Obamacare actually repealed. I don't see them being able to push that through. But let's say we did. What should we go to? I think the best thing we could do is work to get away from needing insurance, because that's what's driven up healthcare. The more government and insurance companies get involved in it, the more it costs you, which makes you mad. So then you beg for this one-payer system. Guess what? When you see America to go to that one-payer system, now you will see dictation into your personal life. Because guess what? Oh, you didn't eat right, we're not going to pay for you to have that surgery. And another thing is, how much are they going to charge you? Are you going to be paying little bits of money? No. Anything that government gets its hands on, the price goes up and up. And, you complain because we don't provide you with this. We're going to have to raise rates again. It'll be over little stuff. Always is. Here in Indiana, excuse me, they are going to raise gas rates, or the tax, 10 more cents a gallon. Where people are still struggling to fix the roads that they should have already budgeted for, and that our lottery is supposed to go to. On top of that, some cities have also added recently a wheel tax that they claim this wheel tax would be because, the roads need fixed and we need more money, revenue for the roads. That city had just spent all kinds of money on roundabouts. They might help out. What I've seen is a lot of confusion. This ain't Europe. People don't drive roundabouts all the time. Definitely at every intersection, then they got these converging diamonds that just make people into idiots when they hit those. And then they needed a wheel tax. Well, they get it passed, and it comes out that this wheel tax is going to help pay for riverfront development. Now, their new battle that's going on right now is, we want to raise property and income taxes here in the city to pay for riverfront development. And people are finally getting furious. And they're seeing that, if you ask for all this free stuff, you'll find out it's not free. And with so many different taxes going up, it's going to make it hard for them to pass anything like that. But this is really just, in a way, continuations of what's already happened in other, cities, in other states. So we already know, where this type of raise taxes, but you never actually get what you're promised from it. Instead, when you complain about it, they go, well, yeah, we're kind of short on money, so we'll have to raise taxes, but we'll get her done. False promises. Did you really expect government to take care of that for you? I always say, the last thing you want to do is ask government to take care of something for you, because then it might not happen. Okay. We are coming up to the end of the broadcast. I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And don't forget, go check out UCY.tv. Go to UCY.tv. If you're at the top, you see a little support tab. You click that support tab, allow you to donate to UCY. Help keep broadcasts like this and all the other great broadcasts here on UCY going. Independent media is where you're going to get most of your truthful information, because we already know what happens with mainstream media. So it's important that you help support, alternative and independent medias. Again, you can click that support tab, but you can also scroll down towards the bottom. There's an Amazon button. You click that Amazon button. It'll take you straight to UCY's Amazon store, and you get the same great rates, same great shipping prices through Amazon. And at the same time, UCY gets a little kickback to help cover operating costs on the network's end. Again, no extra cost. You shop through Amazon, going through that link through UCY.tv, and you get the same great deals you would if you went directly into Amazon. It just gives a little kickback, and that's a great way where you can get something and still help support independent media. So go check that out. And, a lot of you already know I'm into prepping, and food supplies, fire starters, seeds, for, maybe a catastrophic event where you might need to plant food to, get you through the year or couple years. I'm someone that prefers non-GMO stuff in the first place. So if you need a crisis garden and you can do it non-GMO, you're ensuring, natural nutrition. My Patriot Supply is a great place to get non-GMO seeds. My, preferred place to get non-GMO seeds. And they also have, food supplies and stuff like that. If you go to antityrannynews.com/mypatriot, it'll take you straight to My Patriot Supply. And again, same great prices, same great shipping rate. And we get a little kickback on our end to help cover operating costs, which, year to year, it just keeps going up and up. And it's always, important that we get your support and continue to be able to bring you broadcasts. Check us out. Stay tuned here on UCY.
Truth on the Tracks. You can catch